This is the Son of the Law podcast. All right, everyone, welcome. Welcome to the Son of the Law podcast. I'm your host, Jay Christopher. And before we get started here, I just want to say thank you. I'd like to say thank you for your amazing response to this show. I have received so many notes of encouragement and support from the work we're doing, and it means so much. So just as a reminder, you can find us on both Apple Podcast and Spotify at Son of the Law. And something I've learned just recently, because we just got started, your follows, comments, and then those 5-star reviews on these platforms are incredibly helpful as we get started on this journey together. I also want to invite you to follow us on Instagram at Son of the Law Podcast, where we are working to engage our community of listeners in other fun ways. And lastly, you can always drop me a line and a note at the Son of the Law Podcast at gmail.com. Okay, so now we're going to turn it over to meet our lovely guest. Welcome, Becky Harrold.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Glad to have you here. So just as a reminder of what we're trying to do here, this small town podcast and small town people. So just because you come from a small town and you happen to be a regular sized person doesn't mean that our stories are any less than what's going on in the mainstream. And I actually think that this segment of the population is underrepresented, which is where these conversations with people like you come in, and we get to learn about your big fancy stories and learn some stuff that we might not otherwise know. And so today we're going to talk about traveling the world, and I'm super excited about that to talk about with you. But I'm also interested in our audience to get to know you a little better. And the way that we do that is by asking you some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
But before we do that, I need to introduce you. I'm getting ahead of myself a bit. How do I know you? We have known one another for 15, 16 years, as my guess?
Probably right at that, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we met through kids' sports.
Mm-hmm.
Our daughters played many sports together. And Church, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you were friends with my wife first. But I wanted to think that it kind of was like a front door conversation, front door friendship first, which I think is so small town. You know, you're dropping the kids off and you get a chance to meet somebody and you're like, who is this person that I'm going to trust my kid to go to their house for the first time? Before I do that, I'm going to just make sure that they're not psycho. And
always a good prerequisite before you drop your kids off.
Vice versa. Yep, always good. And so that is just, again, such a small town thing to do. And I've discovered just from living where I do, I've met so many people that way. And it's an awesome way to get to know people and get to know your community. I'd like to say too, that as I introduce you, you have a passion for everything. And that's something that's very, very unique about you. You're very passionate about your work, which a lot of people are passionate about their work, but I think yours is special. Food, culture. I think you have a passion for the weird and interesting. And I learned recently there's a term somebody said his wife was a noticer. And I think by putting "or" on the end of some descriptive word, you can come up with another word for somebody. And so I would say you're an appreciator. Whether or not that seems to be right for you, I don't know.
I
it
like
seems
that
right
a lot.
For me.
That's a great descriptor.
And I've always really appreciated too, your eclectic approach to things in life. You seem to just find a way to see the beauty in something, even if maybe from the outside it's not necessarily beautiful as the world would describe it. You just see it and you compliment it. Sometimes in a way that I wouldn't have ever even thought to look at it. And I think that's cool, a neat perspective. And then I'd also say too, because I've, like I said, really enjoyed our relationship and our friendship, you're very strong-willed, opinionated, and you have a very bold voice on many issues. I appreciate your convictions and your willingness to voice what matters to you. And that big old personality is just one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show and meet our community.
Well, thank you. That's quite the intro.
So tell us about yourself. Tell us about how you're tied maybe to the Lawson area, and your decision to make your home here in this little town in the middle of the Midwest.
So I'm originally from South Missouri, and I always feel like I kept moving further north. But I met my husband in Marshall, which is central Missouri. He is from even further north in Bethany, and we wanted to get closer to his family. I did not want to live in a small town. I'm not from a small town. Didn't want to be here. We actually lived about 30 minutes away in a little bigger town called Cameron. And my husband was working here in Lawson. I was driving 30 minutes to Liberty to a school there. We were literally not living where we were working. So I finally gave in and moved here, broke down. And then it's been my favorite place I've lived.
That's awesome.
That's how I ended up here.
That's awesome. And how might people know you? Because you're now that you're not being held here against your will, how might people know you in our community?
Most of the community is going to know me as a teacher and a coach. I've been here 7 years now, but they also knew me as Griffin's mom, as Anna's mom for a time. And then my husband was the principal for 14 years. So for a long time, I was kind of Vera because I wasn't here, but I was the wife that was, known about. And then just now I have my own set of friends. So yeah, just Becky.
Awesome. That's great. And you mentioned kind of where you were born and raised. Early family life. How'd you come to this place that we are today?
Early family life was a little up and down. Divorced parents, and then lived with a mom who was focused on other things besides raising us. And so I've been on my own since I was 16.
Okay.
And experienced some homelessness for a couple of weeks when I was 16. And my sister at 18, she'd already graduated. So she moved back to where I was living in Southwest Missouri. And we went and got a house, and I've been renting. I started renting at 16. So worked at Napa Auto Parts. And that's crazy
because every time I go to try to fix the car and there's like a 16-year-old girl there, I just look past.
Yeah, and
what is this kid gonna know? I need to talk to.
But it was awesome because like the guys used to grill me because we would try to memorize as many part numbers. We had part numbers as you can.
Yep.
And we would compete like who could get it first.
Yep. I'm so thankful that you said that because I have been schooled more than once by the 16-year-old girl thinking I knew something that she didn't.
Yep.
And so I just go in and talk to them. I'm like, okay, you probably know more than I do. This is the part I think I need.
They're there for a reason.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
They are. Okay. Let's see.
Well, and that is why, like, when you say I'm independent, that's why I've been doing it since I was 16. So I don't, like I tell my husband, I don't need you, but I want you, and it makes it even better.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, that's a great perspective. Okay, so we're here again in small town, Midwest towns, and just to kind of celebrate the small town atmosphere, and to reflect that there's a lot of people out there who see the Midwest and Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois. Wherever you're listening, if you're in a small town, this little town of Lawson is like your town. And these towns, while often overlooked, they really do contribute to the culture, historical, economic, the fabric of the Midwest. And, charm is kind of like in the quirkiness. We've got a little town northeast of Lawson called Hamilton. It's kind of known for quilting. Other towns are known for their old railroad work. We have a lake in town that used to be called the Tank Pond, where steam trains used to fill up their water tanks as they were coming through town here. And I don't know, it just makes them special. But it's a really close-knit community, and there are so many of us out here that call places like this home. And I'm glad that, you're in this little town with us, and I get to know you. So what are 2 things that you love about L-Town?
When I look at movies, when I watch movies, when I listen to music, like even Taylor Swift's early stuff, everything's about small town and all that. And the heart of all of those is always the school. And the school is the identity of the town. And it reflects the culture of the town. It creates the culture of the town. And our school is fantastic. The fact that I guess what I love about it is we still have, even though we're small, we still have a wide variety of personalities and interests and
Mhm.
skills and abilities and all that. And while everybody's not a best friend, everybody roots for each other.
Mhm.
So it's just really cool when, you have all these smaller groups of segments of population
Mhm.
that are being supported by the athletes, or and all the theater kids show up and they're cheering, and it's just a really cool um, expression of culture and community. And community, I think, is what is missing in a lot of the society, and that's why we get their fabric.
Yeah, you have a really unique place, isn't it? And I grew up in Independence, Missouri, and when I first moved here or thought about moving here, I married a girl who was from here, and I was like, I'm not coming to Mayberry. This place is not for me.
I called it Mayberry to my
Yeah.
husband.
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
and it's almost too good to be true. And it's
Mhm.
like I lived here for 10 years before I really appreciated how honest and genuine people were, and I couldn't believe it. But now it's come to be so special. Okay, but no town is perfect.
Mhm.
L Town especially, right here in the 64062. So, what is something that you don't love about it?
So this is both my one thing I do like about it, but also it's always the double-edged sword. My kids could not get away with anything in town because if anything happened, that we knew about it. So as a parent, that was great, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but that also means that everybody does know everything, and that's the common thing said about small towns. So I would say that one it goes in both categories. For our specific town of Lawson, the one thing I wish I could change, and it has changed a lot for the better in this way, is the neatness and coziness of the town. And you and I have seen the growth and the change in that a little bit, but we've
Mm-hmm.
also been to Europe together.
Yeah.
And I would love to bring that where everybody just has enough pride to keep it clean and to keep it neat. And I realize that it's not always just about pride. A lot of time it's time and energy or skills or whatever. And the elderly need help. But that's one thing I wish we were a little better at.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like I said, no place is perfect. New
Mhm.
York is the greatest city in the world, and there's rats running everywhere. So, it's just something we all kind of live with. But it's the good far outweighs the not good.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And like the part that I love is the part that's also improved, the part that I wish would just keep improving.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it works together.
That's awesome. Hey, before we jump into our main topic here, I want to ask you some fun rapid fire questions because that's how people really get to know who they're talking about. And that's who we really want to know. We want to know Becky. So, uh, how long before you check your phone in the morning?
It's pretty quickly. I usually wake up before my alarm, and I still use an alarm clock, but I don't want to be up yet.
Mm.
So I'm a news girl. So I just scroll the latest news, just if anything happened overnight, and just for about 5 minutes, just to get my other eye open.
Yep.
And then
Then you're in.
Then
Then
I
you're
get
off and
going.
running. Then
Yep.
you're onto the playlist. So,
Mhm.
what's on your playlist right now?
So playlists, I don't really do playlists
Okay.
because playlists means you have to make a decision, and I have to do so much in my life to have to make decisions. I don't want to make another decision.
Yep.
So I am a radio girl, whether Pandora or Spotify, whatever. Just play something for me. But having said that, my go-tos. Okay, this is Chris Stapleton's national anthem at the Super Bowl.
Straight heat.
Oh my gosh. Like sometimes I just need to feel something. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
give it to me, Chris. And I know it's the only national anthem. It beats Whitney for me. I know that's sacrilege, but
I don't know. There's some Hendrix fans out there for the national anthem.
that's true.
There's
That's
a lot
true.
of good ones.
So that one gets me. And then I guess like when I work out, I'm a big Metallica girl. So
Okay.
been listening to Master of Puppets lately. So I'm going back to that.
So that's you're triggering me, not in a bad way. It's like just frustrating because Master of Puppets and Metallica and a lot of that awesome rock music, that is all music from the 90s. And,
which was just a few years ago.
I know, right? It was like yesterday. But they're still playing it. They're still playing that at the football games. That's still the hype music. And like you can't get hyped to the weekend. You can't get hyped to, I don't know. I'm not gonna throw anybody else under the bus, but
Some of it, though, is because the coaches who are our age are choosing that music.
I love it. There's no complaints. I mean, this is the
Makes
right
me want to go
stuff.
lift.
Okay. All right. Name something on your wish list.
Travel more.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's given. We're going to talk a lot about that tonight. So that's wonderful.
That's
And again, that's why you're here. As you say, you spend this life and you do the grind, right? Rise and grind right here in L Town. And then your kind of like heart and passion is across the sea. Right?
Yeah, yes.
Somewhere over the rainbow.
And as much as I love to go there, I always love coming home.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, I love it.
Exactly. Okay, so if you could instantly become an expert at any random skill, what would it be?
Speaking foreign languages.
Okay, that's a fantastic
I have
one.
a theme.
What language do you have an order of what you're trying to learn and what you'd want to learn?
I'd want to learn French. Just because it's so challenging and beautiful. I would want to learn French. Then Spanish. Spanish would be more useful. But Italian, I'm more interested in Italian history and Italian culture, and I've been there. So probably Italian over Spanish.
Brilliant. What's your spirit animal? But like in like the least flattering way. Mine would be like like a bear, and I don't really believe in spirit animals, but I think this is super
It's a
funny.
fun question.
Yeah. So mine would be like a bear, but not like a grizzly bear. Although I'd be like the cool,
Like a sweet little brown bear.
Well, actually thinking like a fat poo who like needs a shave. You know what I mean? Like got too like honey drunk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just laid out. So anyway, what's yours?
Mine would be probably a mule or a donkey.
Okay.
And it's because of the stubborn part of it, the strength part of it. And my God, they're just practical.
They are practical.
They're useful and they get stuff done. And that's kind of how I am. Like I hate the faucets with two. I know that's what's in style and everybody likes them, but they are impractical. I'm always going to freeze my hand or I'm going to burn my hand off. I'm never going to turn both of them. Give me one stupid handle.
I need one faucet. Mix the water for me.
Yes.
That's another first world problem.
Yes, it is a first world problem.
Like, can you imagine I had to go all the way upstairs to get my iPhone charger?
What kind of peasants are we?
Oh my gosh. The world. True or false, angels are real?
Yes, but not in the popular media.
Okay.
So
love it. Good answer. What's the meaning of life?
Well, 42, I thought that was already decided, but that is obviously not my answer. It is to live genuinely and fully, whatever that means to you.
Okay. All right. And if you can combine any three animals to make the ultimate creature, what would it look like? Head, body, and legs.
So my maiden name is Griffin. My son is named Griffin, which is one of these creatures, but mine is not a griffin. I can't do that. That would be cheating. So I would say horse head, because I think horses are beautiful.
Okay.
But I have to have an eagle body. So kind of mixing up the griffin, kind of stealing the griffin thing a little bit because I have to have hands. So I've got to go with the praying mantis. So I couldn't go with a four-legged, like standing on four. So I had to have some kind of a bird.
Okay. So can you fly?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. But I also have a long flowing mane in it, which my hair does not do. So.
And praying mantis.
I have to have hands.
There's no wrong answer. We started doing that as a family like 15 years ago, and we went through so many different head, body, legs, animals. It's unbelievable. So
needs to be a children's game or an adult's game.
Right. Okay. So real reason we're here is to talk about travel. And, you know, I want to set this up in a way that I think will help inspire people. And, you know, so I Googled a list of things that people have always wanted to do and they never do. And number one on top of that list is when I retire, when I get the money, when I fill in the blank, I want to travel. And it's been my experience or my observation that when they run into someone who's actually done the thing and they talk to someone, they light up in a way that is, it's it's great to see them get, full of passion about something, but it's also kind of sad because they're unintentionally choosing not to take a step in the direction of something that they want to go do. And so you've kind of found a way to, on a teacher's income, go see the world and bring it back here for all of us to enjoy, and then encourage other people to go. So we're going to dig into that a little bit.
Okay.
But also, like, we're going to talk about travel. So I would just say book the trip, right? Third
Yes.
chair, you're hissing here. If you needed a reason, book the trip. And you'll hear us say that a couple of times more probably. But this is not necessarily just a book the trip episode.
Right.
There's many reasons that you might want to take initiative. You could start a passion project, get in shape, take more risks, live more mindfully, meditate, read more books, right? Start saving, investing more. Today, it's all about travel, and we're going to inspire and hope will, encourage that person to book the trip, local or abroad. So let's get into that. How did you start traveling?
So the European travel, which is what I've done. So you said around the world, but I have only been throughout the United States and Europe.
Okay.
And I have been to a little bit of Central America. I've been a few there.
Okay, so I haven't been around the world, but I've been in lots of places around the world.
Yeah,
Got it.
Yeah. So I haven't done everything there, but so as a teacher, like you said, with the teacher salary, I could not afford to go.
Yeah.
But there are programs. EF is the main company, and
What's EF?
EF is EF Tours.
Okay.
And it has been around, it had been around a long time when I was in high school in the 90s. And so that allows teachers to take students, and if enough students go, the teacher's trip is paid for. And so that's what I've done. And so I've been able to travel these places, taking kids. But it's so much fun in class when I'm teaching this stuff and I'm like, oh, and if you come on this trip, we're going to go see this and we're going to do this. And right over here, we're going to go have lunch. And then we're
Right.
going to go into Versailles,
Right.
And then the kids get excited and they want to travel. They want to see those places that they're learning about. So
Right. Let's get into that in just a minute. Before we do though, what sparked your interest in traveling? Because there are people around here, and I put myself in that camp. I had never been out of the United States. I went to the beach a couple of times when I was a kid. My family, we'd kind of go to the beach, and that was the way we did it. As I came into my own family, we kind of do some beach trips, and then we go to the mountains, and we do a lot of stuff around here. But I've only been out of the country one time, and I had no interest really even in going until I went, and then I just kind of got bit by a bug. So did you have a moment like that, or were you always just like, I'm an Anglophile, I want to go to Europe, I want to go see England and Britain? And
I'd say I've always loved history. So there was, I don't even know what the movie is, but like one of the places I grew up around is Tonka.
Okay. Yep.
And it's an old burnt down castle ruins on top of a bluff, and
State Park,
Southeast
Missouri.
And so I would go there with my dad, would take me there all the time. We'd go hiking a lot, and I would go there, and I remember watching, and I always had this feeling when I was there that was different than everywhere else. And I remember watching a movie, and the line, these two people were standing there, and something very similar. It was like England, ruins, whatever. And the line was, that you're feeling, that feeling is time.
Mm.
And to me, it was a very tangible, that feeling, that's what it described to me. It's a very tangible way of touching history, not just seeing it, but feeling it. And so I grew up with that within me. And then when I was in high school, I couldn't afford it because, I was homeless at one point.
Right.
So this is actually my junior year. So I was living on my own. And I had a group of friends go on an EF tour, and I couldn't go. And they came back with all their stories. And, like Rome even had like a minor earthquake when they were there, so that's a very specific memory. And so, as soon as I was able to, I started my own.
Yeah, it's kind of like the someday.
Mm-hmm.
right?
hmm
Yeah.
I would have loved to have traveled abroad and studied abroad had money allowed
Yeah.
in circumstances.
As you were talking through there and as you were working there, I was thinking about that Wayne's World theory where he's like looking at the Stratocaster through the window. He's like, she will be mine. Oh, yes.
Oh yes,
She
she
will
will
be
be
mine.
mine.
Classic. What? No
Excellent.
stairway. As if. Okay. What was your first international trip then? So you said, I'm never going to go. And then you go.
Yeah.
Was it
So
all you lived up that you had made up in your mind it would be and more? Or was it?
yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
for sure. So it was in 2006, and I don't even know how I got it because there was another trip. A guy another teacher who had this going for a long time, and he had all like the college, the advanced history, all those classes, and he pulled from them, and he had this huge group that went. And I was like, you know what? There are some that like volleyball players who were talking about it, but they didn't really want to go with that group. So I was like, what if I started it? And so I actually ended up taking I had 6 girls, and 3 of them were volleyball players. And we went, and it was a trip for all of us. It was my first time, their first time. So for me, it was as much learning as anything.
That's incredible.
But we already had a great relationship. So it was really easy. Like even the ones who weren't volleyball players, I still had in class. So we were still pretty close.
Where did you go?
We did the big 3. So London, Paris, Rome. And actually we went Rome, Paris, London. Never do that. You always get warmer as you go.
Okay.
Never go the other direction.
I didn't realize, why is London, Paris, Rome considered the big 3?
When people want to go to Europe, they want to go, almost everybody wants to go to one of those 3.
Okay. And what are
Most
the
people-
draws? What are the primary draws to those towns?
The history, the culture. I mean, all the bigs. I mean,
Okay.
London, of course, is center of the UK. I mean, I want to say Big Ben, even though it's not called Big Ben. But so that makes me.
That's the big
Yeah,
clock?
That's the Elizabeth Tower. Yes.
Okay.
Big Ben is the bell inside of it. But anyway, and then Paris, of course, everybody wants to see Eiffel. Everybody wants to climb Eiffel, and everybody should.
Yeah.
And then Rome. Rome is just amazing. So from
That's
the Colosseum.
Colosseum.
And
Yep.
then there's a side trip to Pompeii.
Gladiator 2 just came out.
Yes, have not seen it, cannot wait.
Okay. Well, I liked the first one.
I did
Well,
too.
I hated the first one, but I liked it.
Yes.
I think, you know what
It's
I mean?
very well done,
Yeah.
which is why you hate Joaquin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to
Yeah.
punch that guy.
Yeah. Marcus Aurelius, my man, even though he died. But
Right?
whatever.
Okay. So you mentioned that you incorporated the students into the travel, and you kind of talked about that being an experience for your volleyball community there. How did you start working that into your classroom, and how did the trips manifest after that point?
I would say that after the first time, I didn't. And this was in 2006. Nobody had Facebook yet. So that is a big difference too. So that'll come in later.
Wow, you've been doing this for 18 years?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
And then when I got to my next school, there was a woman who already established, and she was from Belgium. So there is no way I was taking it over from her. Yeah, she speaks French.
Yeah.
And she's amazing. And so actually another teacher whom I teach with now, even, he and I did a domestic one. We took juniors and seniors, juniors going to be seniors and seniors who had just graduated, to DC. And we did a 5-day trip there. And so we kept it going, but just domestically. And that was awesome. And then on my next school, nobody was doing this trip. So I started it again.
Wow.
And so that's when I really got started. And I did every 2 years so kids could pay for it.
Yeah.
And that's when we got it going.
That's incredible. Okay, so what has been, of all the places that you've been, your favorite destination in the world, and then why is that kind of so special to you?
Oh, God, that is an impossible question.
I believe that.
Yeah. So I would have to go with just like what I do with movies, I have to do like a top few or whatever. Personally, on my own trip, because I did get to do an adult trip, going to Edinburgh and York and Bath, and I know those are all different places, but the UK right there, the UK itself is just so special. My own family history is from there, especially Scotland, and so that is probably my number one. But you really there is nothing closer to time travel than Pompeii.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it is just phenomenal. And then
Pompeii is what? It's like a volcano destroyed
city.
When
Vesuvius buried the city, several areas, but it's the one that's, it would take you a week to go through everything, but you can't, or more. So
We got,
Pompeii,
we got a chance to go to the Pompeii exhibit when it was here at Union Station. It was incredible.
so none of that stuff was at Pompeii because it's on exhibit.
Oh,
So
okay.
I had to go to the Union Station to go see it as well.
Wow.
Because you don't get to see it there. You get to see the original takeaway, what they call takeaway today. Because it's all like you can see where the stoves were and you can see all of that.
Yeah.
That's where some of that stuff came from, but nothing's there now.
Mm.
Just the takeaway itself, but none of the artifacts. So
You say takeaway, is that stuff that's been stolen or stuff that they've harvested from the thing to bring the educational experience around the world?
takeaway is literally when you walk up and get your food and you walk away with it. So
Oh.
yeah. And so this was they have basically their little convenience stores with their takeaway food. And some of that was burnt to such a crisp that it was carbonized. So those are the artifacts. So if you remember that big loaf of bread,
Yeah.
that was one of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And we talk about why these places are special. What's different? And I know this is a bit of a chip shot or a softball question, but I don't know. Your passion for this stuff is exciting for me because it makes you appreciate it in a new way, the way you describe it. So, what's different about the place and how special it is compared to like a picture? Somebody says, I don't need to go out of town. I can see, Warwolf from, that's a big trebuchet in Scotland, from a picture. I can see the castles on Outlander. I can see, pick the Last Kingdom TV show where they shoot in some of these destinations and make it look like a period. What's different? What's different being there in person?
Yourself. You are what's different. So one of my other favorite places is Salzburg. And when we were there this last time, because that was my second time I got to go there. So I had learned last time about this, supposed to be the greatest chocolate cake in the world. And it was made for a king back in the 1800s. And the same shop is still there and they still make the cake. It's a chocolate torte. And so my son and I go there, we get this. We don't save it for later. We eat it.
Yeah.
And
let's go.
I am eating the same cake. I walk the same streets to get there. That king, that same one is going, it's Franz Joseph, right? Who's the emperor of the Habsburg Empire of going into World War I. It's his nephew that gets assassinated.
Okay.
And so I am literally in the streets of the town where this is. I am having the same exact, tasting the same things. So I am getting a more up close and personal, like I know what he smelled. I know I touch everything that I can that they allow me to. I know what that building felt like. I know, just the experiences. So now when I teach about him, I know him better.
Yeah.
So, and not necessarily from the cake, but it's the same idea.
Yeah. You said it perfectly. You were literally in there, seeing the same sights, the same building that was there 200, 300 years ago.
What you're feeling is time.
Yeah.
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 You feel it. So it transcends time. So then you can be there with them a little bit.
Yeah. That's brilliant. How do you decide where you're going to travel next?
So with students, it's always hard because they always want to do the big three. And we try to do every 2 years again, so they can, monthly payments over 2 years is much more doable for a lot of people, especially in our small town. And so every 2 years, if somebody went as a sophomore, they could go to a different place as a senior. So what I kind of did the last several times was I did the big three plus Pompeii, because that's actually an add-on. And then the next one I would do the World War II trip. And that's the one that you went on. So that was the second time I'd done the World War II trip. So I had done, moving from my previous school to this one, I had done Liberty North in my transition, the World War II in my transition. And then I did the big three and then World War II.
Yeah. And I mean, the cultural significance of the World War was next level. And then, as you rightly point out, you can't miss the history that is. I mean, it's on display everywhere, but then you've got these great tour guides that are kind of telling you about all these things.
Oh, when Henri in Belgium in Bastogne, he was 5 when the Germans roll into town. They take over his house. He has to sleep on the floor, his whole family. He's 9 when the Battle of the Bulge is going on. His dad dies on the last day, blown up by artillery when he's out getting some. I mean, he talked to us.
Yeah.
He saw all that.
Yeah.
He saw the SS unit that was then later carried out this massive massacre that is famous in world history.
Yeah. So for
We don't get that.
For the third chair listening here, Becky is just spitting World War II facts at us about Bastogne and the Battle of the Bulge and whatnot. And Henri that she mentioned, 5 years old, right, when the troops occupied, he mentioned that World War II is rapidly becoming a war of antiquity. And he described antiquity as something that nobody living can remember firsthand. So the last people who can remember what World War II was like, they're passing away. And so book the trip if you have any interest in going and seeing and talking to some of these people who live there. They're still there and they have wonderful stories to tell. And if you have a relative who happened to participate in World War II or thereabouts, if your family was impacted by World War II, talk to them, get that information, and you can live this too.
It's pretty powerful to see, as you got to, your grandfather was in on the second wave.
Yeah.
And our ferry pulls in on Sword Beach, I believe. And we're pulling in there, and he wasn't even my grandpa, and I was having that moment for you. And then I look over at you. I mean, it's just a whole different level to see the place. Location is powerful.
It is. Okay, so all of that was unexpected for me. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but you did. You've done this, dozens of times now. What's been one of the most unexpected things you've seen on a trip or a tour? And I know that's kind of a loaded question too, so you'll probably top it, but I'm sure there are some fun ones.
This is actually not like the history. It's from our trip. And it was Will. So we had a student who is currently in college, and he is playing in the band there. And we had just gone up to Trocadero, which is the upper part where you have the best view of the Eiffel. And Eiffel Tower, since the millennium, has twinkles at 11 o'clock and midnight and 1. So we'd gone up there to catch the first one. And we're walking down back to Eiffel Tower, and there's people everywhere. And there's this one group, and they have a tambourine, drums, different types of drums, whatever. And you could just see this kid was like interested. And finally,
Will's a freaking drummer.
Yes. And I was like, well, do you want to go see? And he wouldn't. And finally, I was like, we kind of had to do the triple dog dare you, right? And so he finally went over, and you have to speak French, right? And he started to say something in English, and I did talk over him right there, and because I knew. And they looked over at me, and I said, bonsoir. And then they said, oh, bonsoir. And then they broke into English, and they said, very good. And then, so they let Will play an Egyptian drum he had never touched before, and it was different.
Yep.
And it took him a second, and then they started just jamming with him.
Yep.
And then once Will was done, they just started jamming and kind of went ham, and like people were dancing, our kids were going, everybody was going, and it was just this cultural moment. You have Egyptian, French people, Americans, everybody. I mean, and different people had joined in, and my God, that's the best the world has to offer right there.
Yeah, it's a completely unexpected cultural mashup.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Love that.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, of all the places I love, that experience is it. It's experience is what I love about travel.
Yeah. So while we were there, and I don't want this to turn into a story about our trip, right? Because there's so much more to it than. But my next question really is like, how do you blend And how do you prepare the students, and how do you kind of prepare yourself and educate people on these places that you're going to go and see? This particular place that you were just describing is where Hitler took a picture of this place that he had conquered, right in front of the Eiffel Tower and whatnot. And so you've got this picture of history,
Yep.
and you're standing in that
Exact same
feeling of
spot.
time,
Mhm.
and you're right there. So how do you blend that in across multiple cities, multiple weeks of lessons? You know, you're trying to educate kids and show them the significance of what these things of history have meant, but you're constrained by the lesson itself. So how do you blend it all together?
Well, and part of it is throughout their sophomore year in world history, well, and American history freshman year, I also use it because of the World War II trips. I use what we did there. I show them. I try to give them experiences to get them excited. Then they learn about the history of it as they go. But the problem is that's their sophomore year, so they buy in then, and then they go their senior year. After their senior year, well, they've slept since then, so they don't remember all of that.
Right.
So what I started doing 3 trips ago was doing a newsletter. And it was, at first, it was like once every 6 months. But then starting at a year out, it's once a month. And I would either have, like, what I did for ours was did it in the order of the trip itself. And the newsletter was divided into some practical stuff, like, how to get a passport. But also, one was always cultural. Like, these are the norms. Do not do this. You must do this. I mean, just... Americans don't have to do that. We can travel for 15 hours and we're still, just another state away.
Yeah.
Whereas if you travel for 15 hours in Europe, you've gone through several countries.
That's incredible.
And so we don't have to worry about those things here. And so Americans, a lot of Europeans think they're rude because of that. Well, but if we know those things and we try to respect it, they will respect us. And that's what I've always run into.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always the cultural element. And then I always do the main piece of history, like I'm going to spotlight things that I know that we're going to see, maybe some background to it. And then I've also found that the kids have slept since then. So what I did start doing on this trip was right before we went to it that day, I would screenshot that and send that to the group chat because
here, read this.
Yeah, the lessons either they didn't always read or they would skip.
Right.
So they're still teenagers.
So you go and you see these wonderful sites, and I mentioned earlier you're a foodie.
Mm.
You talked about the cake, but maybe that's the answer to the question. What has been some of the most one of your best memories around a food experience in any of your trips?
So, okay, I'm going to bring up your wife, actually. So your wife went with me on the trip before, and anybody listening is going to be like, what? Okay, so we're in Rome, and I am probably more of a fan of Italian food than I am of any other.
Okay.
But this wasn't even my palate right here. I'm okay with seafood, but your wife loves seafood.
Indeed, she does.
We were at what we would call a truck stop. Okay. It was a truck stop, convenience store, but like one of those big ones.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because it's Rome and just outside of Rome, there are ruins everywhere. So whether it's a truck stop or whatever, they showcase their ruins. Okay. So we're looking at this and we look up and they have this grill there and this huge, almost like a hibachi style grill.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going to go ahead and eat here, and we're just kind of playing out the day. She goes over and she gets, I don't remember what kind of seafood, but it was something risotto.
Yeah.
And they fresh whip this up, and you just watch, and this truck stop risotto, like, when we got to the end, she's like, that is the best meal I've ever had in my life. And that's the end of the trip.
Yeah.
And we had other good food.
It's so funny. It's like the start of a good joke. So 2 Americans are in Rome. They walk into a truck stop and order some seafood risotto.
Yeah.
Fill in the blank.
Oh my gosh. So I am not that thrilled by the taquitos at Quick Trip because I have seen what that is. So, but my own personal favorite food is from my adult trip. And we were really lucky to have a foodie tour guide, and he would steer us towards everything. And when we were in St. Andrews, and it was just plain old fish and chips, which, but it was fresh caught. I mean, St. Andrews is on the ocean right there. And then there was a sticky toffee pudding, and we had some, I don't even know. We all tried beer, wine. We tried everything. And it was just one of the most simple, but so British, and it was just so good.
Yeah.
Oh, loved it. And it was, again, the experience. We were in St. Andrews.
Right. And so, you mentioned that you've been to some of these places several times, but I guess the question is, and it feels like it's another softball, but maybe it's not. Do you ever get tired of going to these same big three? Is it the same place every time you go back? Are you getting new experiences every time? Are you having a deeper understanding of it? How do you do that?
So with the tour guides, the same parts of it, the big parts are the same, but they each have their own of what they want to show you. And like I had such a phenomenal tour guide my first time with the World War II themed trip, that this time we had Tony, and I had let him know, because I had asked for Barry again, and he had known that. Well, Tony set out to top Barry. So Tony took us above and beyond. I mean, he took us to Luxembourg. I mean, he took us to extra places.
Luxembourg being another trip for the old, for another country for the old
passport there. Yeah. So we had six countries instead of 5. We went grocery shopping at the Lidl. So, it was amazing. So yeah, each one, especially when they know that you've done before, they want to show you different things and new things. And then, so like when I got to stay in London after a trip, so I was now the tour guide. So we could go to the things that I knew, and then we'd explore nearby.
Right.
So it was a little mixture of both, and that's super fun. So no, I never get tired of it, because I can go to Kansas City and explore new all the time.
Yeah, that was the part I was thinking is you're talking about a city that's the size of it's
9 million.
It's not New York, yeah, but it's bigger than Kansas City, London.
Yeah, 9 million people.
Yeah, I think Kansas City is like 5, so twice the size of Kansas City, maybe St. Louis, and yeah, to see it all in a few days is, it's not happening.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay, so we talked about making it you found a way to make it happen. Let's inspire the trip booking process. For somebody who's hesitant to do it, what advice would you give them or encourage them to just make the leap? And let me say, you have full creative license here to, address financial, airplanes, I don't know the language, right? I mean, like all the excuses that somebody might have, just knock that out of the park, please.
So the money is always, it's not an excuse, it's a reality, right?
It is a reality.
So like I want to go back, but I want to go back with my husband and not with students. That means I actually have to pay for it.
Right.
So I want to do that in 2 years. So we have got to.
Which is what you did 2 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need to make a concerted effort to put that money aside. So it just has to be a priority. Some people prioritize going to Chiefs games. Some people prioritize spending on crafting or, whatever their hobby is.
Yeah.
Mine would be travel. So if you are truly wanting to travel, just prioritize it and put your money where your mouth is. So set up $100 a month to a fund, savings account. You can do that in your PayPal or in your banking. I mean, there's so many ways to do it.
Right.
So that's the financial side. Once you've committed that, honestly, the easiest, safest way, the other big stressor, especially for traveling overseas, is travel and language.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 big stressors. So the actual physical traveling, I don't want to drive anywhere else.
Right.
So, and then the language part of it. So I recommend doing an adult trip, like an adult tour. So like I did EF for the students. There's EF go-ahead tours, and I'm not advertising for them. I just know them. But there are other adult tours. Go do those. You'll always have your group leader will usually be able to speak the languages that you need, and all the expenses are done, or all the travel's done for you.
Yep. So they're booking tickets. They're making sure that you're meeting your ride to the place you're going to stay, and they're going to show you the things.
You never wait in line. you always have the best tour guides.
Okay.
Because the tour companies, the tour guides of the local places work with these companies. And like in England, all the tour guides have to pass a test, and they're called blue badges. And so they have to have that or they can't be a tour guide. So they are top notch.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is just the way to go if you're wanting to get into it.
Right. And then how does it feel when you hit the button, when you click submit, or, when you click, I want to go confirm on the credit card or whatever it is, how do you, like, you're making that commitment months ahead of time. What do you do to prepare in the meantime? Are you just stupid excited that whole time? Or walk us through that process. Cause it's a long time between sometimes getting something booked and then actually going.
Well, we booked our first one with my husband and I in 2018 and it was for 2020, and then COVID hit and it actually got pushed back another 2 years.
Right.
So yeah, so there is that initial excitement and you want it to be just like right now, you just want to go. But obviously after you're going for so long, it just gets to the back of your mind.
Yeah.
And until once you're a year out, then you can start like making specific preparations.
Yeah.
And I don't know. For me, when I click that submit, it's like, let's go. Like I'm just ready. Yeah.
You're ready. Well, I really appreciate too, right? We're kind of tying this into some of these other goals. You kind of put your money where your mouth is. If you're going to go on that health journey, you do the same thing. You make sure you've got the pass to the health community center or, the gym. If you're going to save for retirement, you're making a conscious effort to put a systemic amount of money away. You're putting money away systematically.
There you go.
You're right. And, so all of these other things, they require the decision to be made. And, the older I get, the more I think about the decision that's made is one of those beautiful things. You talk about what happened with Will and the drum. The person who says, I'm going to do something and commits to it, that's the work. That's when it happens. That's the, fist in the air, clenched tight, saying, I'm going, bicep flexing. And then the rest is just executing a plan. And that's kind of what some of these tour companies offer. It's like, okay, here's a few dollars a month, and this is a few dollars a month. And over the course of 24 months, you've set yourself up in a place to go. It's incredible.
It is. And I'm a big fan of people who do. I'm in a lot of meetings where we talk about stuff, and I don't want to just talk. I want to do.
Right.
So if I'm not going to waste my time talking, if we're not actually going to do it.
Right.
So
let's bring this back home. So you've gone on the trip and you've had this world encounter where, something that's just out in the street is as old as our country, right? You walk down the street that was built in the 1300s, and you think, my God, America isn't even going to be founded for 400 years from this time and place where they were living culturally over here. How do you come back and to broaden that out, but also to reflect on that as a small town community person? How does that change your worldview?
So there's the worldview of the time aspect of it, and when you're talking about the age of stuff over there, that's one thing that does make it easy to come back, because all I've never ever known living wise is the United States, and everything is so new here. Everything works really well, and where we live specifically in the Midwest was planned out. And so I have an appreciation for plumbing where you can flush toilet paper. I have an appreciation for all those infrastructure things that, even though we may have a few issues, it's still a lot newer than over there. And so I can appreciate the time and history of those over there, but it does make me appreciate the modern conveniences. There is no such thing as a garbage disposal over there. They think they could not put anything in their plumbing system like that. And so, those kind of small things like that does make me appreciate when I come home.
Right.
But then the people side of it is where I find, I love talking to people that want to talk to us over there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was sitting there, sounds so bougie. I was sitting there in front of the Pantheon in Rome. And, the Pantheon, which is ancient Roman temple that the Catholic Church then took over. So literally 2,000 years old. And this man next to me just started chatting. He was from Germany. And he says, very casually, I don't think you Americans really know what socialism is. I mean, this is a very heavy political conversation that he's like starting to hear.
Just jumping right in.
And I'm like,
Rando stranger
I know.
from U.S.
And we had a great conversation and it was phenomenal. And so I don't know who he is, but he is forever in my memory for that. So that I come back here. And historically, socialism is bad word.
Yeah.
From the Palmer raids to 1950s and McCarthyism. And so when you have all that, it makes you think, oh, yeah, there are other perspectives on different things.
Right.
So, it broadens my perspective, but also makes me appreciate it at the same time.
Sure. Yeah, you roll back down your quiet little street when you get here, and you think, gosh, 24 hours ago I was over there.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's surreal.
It is surreal.
And it's quite the dichotomy to love being home and miss it, but also being over there, and loving it so much and then missing home. I mean, so if I can understand that I can understand this side of it.
Yeah. Didn't Dorothy sing that in Wizard of Oz?
I think there was a rainbow in there.
I think so. All right. If somebody wanted to start traveling but didn't know where to begin, where would you recommend that they go first and why?
It's all about their interests. So,
okay.
And I have different vacations for different things as well, different travels. So I've done like the nature travel. So like this summer, went to Colorado and we did hiking and that kind of stuff. That's very different. So they need to find what is their purpose. Do they want culture? Do they want history, culture and history?
Right.
Do they want hiking? So you really have to find what you want. And if you want culture and history, then obviously there's a ton of options. So to narrow down from there, what do you like? Yeah.
We've spent a lot of time talking about international travel, but I've also just come to know you and you're kind of goofy over the South East colonial estates and plantations and
not
whatnot.
As much of the plantations, but like the town, like Savannah. Savannah, the town is yes.
Right? It's just it's
Charleston.
So nobody is saying that you have to go across the world, right? All around the world. You can do some really cool trips right here and set your mind on travel. Just book the trip.
Go to New Orleans. New Orleans is the closest thing I've ever seen to Paris. Like there have been times I was walking down New Orleans streets, I was like I had to do a double take mentally that I was not in Paris.
Right.
It's very similar. So that could be your
I felt that way on the Plaza, actually. I think the Plaza was designed a lot like Paris. It's all
the Plaza is Spanish. So
is it really?
It is. We have a sister city in Spain, and the clock tower or the tower there and the fountain are copies of, I think it's Cordoba, Spain. Don't quote me on the city.
Dude, you know more than I do.
That's why it's all Spanish.
I just knew it was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Sister city there and copies, replicas of theirs.
That's awesome. All right. So any final words for our third chair?
You can't win if you don't play. If you want to travel,
nice
go
card
somewhere.
reference.
Oh.
Nice card reference.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, go do it. I mean, even if it's just going to Hawatonka, start small, but their experiences, live life genuinely and fully.
Right. Where you want to go next?
I am so torn right now. So, because this makes me sound completely pretentious, I realize that I really want to go back to Edinburgh and York. York was amazing. Absolutely blew me away and wasn't even on my radar.
So Edinburgh, capital of Scotland.
Edinburgh, capital of Scotland. And then York, which is not too far. It's on the northern side of England.
Yeah.
And then Bath. So I would do that again. But I also want to go back to Munich, which is in southern Germany and Bavaria, and hit Salzburg more because Salzburg is amazing. You're walking along there are graves from the 1300s right there. And it's like, how is this even real?
Right.
So just beautiful. And then, of course, the World War II history around there is amazing. So and then Florence, Italy. Oh my gosh, I sound so pretentious.
No, it's not. These are real places, right?
I know.
People can be like, I want to go to New York. I want to go to whatever. I want to go to Salzburg or Edinburgh. I mean, that's what that's what I guess I'm trying to pull out here is that these destinations are not dreams. They are real.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the creation that we've been given, and we might as well go enjoy it.
Almost all of them have VRBO. So
Yeah,
just
or
so you know.
Yep.
They're out there.
Yeah. Well, I'll end the way we started and just say thank you. Thank you for your passion around these things. I mean, it oozes out of you. I mean,
Thanks.
I think it's so cool the way that you're living your kind of travel dreams, and then you're sharing all of that with us in this community, and then you're continuing to pursue the passion as you move into the next trip, and it's, like I said, it's really inspiring. So if this hasn't inspired you as much as it has inspired me, I don't know, maybe you're dead, but book the trip, and we'll see you next time. This has been the Son of the Law podcast. Have a good night, everyone.